Welcome back to another episode of the Adventures of a Disney Dad podcast. Matt and Chip here, and we are here to talk about all things Walt Disney World, vacation planning. No guest this week. We're going to be talking about your listener questions. We've got 8 questions. We're going to try and get to all of them, and we're going to jump right into it. Chip, this is like probably the most common subject we're asked about, or at least I'm asked about as a travel agent, and it's regarding Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. And before we jump into the specific question, is Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique worth it to you?
Yes, at least once. We've
Very
done it twice.
straightforward answer.
I mean, it is. It's one of those things that the first time I experienced it with Kenzie, I'll never forget. They get to be a princess for the whole day. Sometimes it lasts multiple days, just depending on if they shower or go to the pool or not. But it's a really cool experience, especially for girls. I don't know the boys' side. We've never done like the prince or whatever, but
I think the
the
boys'
girl,
side is not worth it unless you
yeah,
got like a situation where little brother is going to be really obsessed with the fact that big sister got to do something cool and they didn't or whatever. But it really made me think when I saw this question, what like when are they going to bring it back at Disney Springs?
I don't know. It's such a good space. That's where we did it the first time.
And they keep
Um,
it like the building is still there, the signage is still there, all that fun stuff. So it's not like it's gone, and the demand for Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is through the roof. Like it is always nuts. I like I constantly get emails from people like, I missed Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. Can you help me? And they're not my clients. They're people that have seen. There's a YouTube video that I've posted about how to book Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. I've never missed it for a client, but people always, for one reason or another, they miss it. And then they're like, help me, help me, help me. And that's where this question comes from. And the question is, I missed out on Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. What can I do now to try and get a reservation for my vacation?
I, I mean, I've got a couple different approaches you could check every day. I don't know I saw your, I used your video when I did it originally this past summer, but like, I don't remember off the top of my head. The only other thing is just to go and show up because they have a sign outside that says, "Hey, we're taking walk-ups." And they had it on, it had to have been like the 1st of July or 2nd of July. So we were over there during the July 4th and they had the sign out every day at Magic Kingdom. We were there.
Yeah, there's 2 options. Number one is you check, every day manually or via an alert system. You can use thrillData.com, who has a free email alert system. The downside of that one is that it's going to be slower. The positive side is that it's free, right? Like, so they'll send you an email anytime, a reservation opens up in your vacation window. But the downside is like you have to see the email and then log in and get it on the app, and that takes a long time. There are other services that I'm not going to like advertise for here that are like you have to pay for. I would not recommend those. I think that typically they're just not worth it. Like I would rather try manually, but to each their own. However, important it is to you depends on whether or not you're going to spend some money to try and get the reservation. The only other option is the one Chip pointed out, and that's to do a walk up. You rope drop Magic Kingdom, you go straight there, and you ask to get put on the walk up list, and you hope for the best.
Yeah.
Chances are you're going to get an afternoon or an evening reservation, which is not ideal. Like if you're doing this experience and you're spending all this money, you want it to be as early in the day as possible so they get to experience the entire like the magic of it walking around and at Disney the entire day dressed as a princess, right?
Yeah.
You get the cast member compliments, you get a lot of interaction with characters, photos, all that kind of fun stuff. That all goes out the window if you get a 5:30 slot, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Now, if you have a suite, like a good dining reservation, you're going to the Royal Palace, I mean, or
Royal
Cinderella's
table.
Royal Table, then it'd be pretty cool to do it that way. But you're right. It goes the same way on cruise ships, I'll tell you as well, Matt. So that's one of the harder ones to get to because they only have certain amount of days that they do it. But it's the same thing. If you don't get it, the day you get on the ship, go right to Bippity Boppity Boutique or find out where they're scheduling those. And most likely they're going to get you in.
And if you want to know all the tips and tricks to be able to get the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique reservation, check out the YouTube video that we've posted. It's a masterclass on how to get Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique and all the mistakes that people make and the reasons why people can't get them. And I'll tell you one other thing that we should touch on really quickly. The main reason that people, I get a lot of emails like, I was right on there at midnight, right when it opened, and there was nothing available immediately. And the problem that people forget is it's 60 days plus your vacation days. So if you only have like a 1 or 2 night vacation, chances are the bookings are already going to be gone because there's people for a week before you that have already been able to book it, right?
Yeah.
So if you're booking at 60 days, the people that are booked at 60 days plus 7, plus 5, plus 4, whatever, have all already been able to book on those days. So that's why if you have a 1 day vacation, you may pop in there and it's already sold out. What you want is like a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 day vacation. And you start by looking at the dates at the end of the trip
Yeah.
because those are going to be the ones that other people haven't had a chance to book yet. And you work yourself back. So Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is almost always going to be at the end of your vacation if you get it. But if you only have like a 1 night or a 2 night stay, or if you're staying off site, you're not going to get it. And you're going to need to go through those methods we talked about with either alerts manually or doing a walk up and hoping for the best. So
Yeah, for sure.
good luck to everybody. Godspeed, and may the force be with you and all that other fun stuff. The next question is, for a family of 4, what's the best dining option at Hollywood Studios? Chip, I hate dining at Hollywood Studios. So this is a fun question. Let's first talk table service or quick service, and kind of what would your approach be if you're going to Hollywood Studios and you're bringing the family, and you've got a family of 4. I know obviously your family's bigger. You got a family of 4. What would your approach be to dining at Hollywood Studios?
There's probably 2 options for us. We're going to go to Woody's Roundup Rodeo Barbecue. That is number 1, and that's clear cut number 1. It's not even close. Just in terms of it's great food. It's a great atmosphere. We're a big story family. It's themed well. It's perfect for where it's at. It's great. And I think it's a good value. It is. It's a really good value. I do believe. I mean, it's a little overpriced, but you're going to go away not hungry. It'll save 2 meals of your. It's 2 meals of your day. Honestly, the only other option, I like 50s Primetime Cafe. I'm a big fan. It's more probably geared more towards the teens, just because there's some sarcastic humor, like old school, like get your elbows off the table type of humor. But I get it. But the parents might enjoy it, and I think the food's pretty good. It's got one of the better fried chickens on Disney property. But those are my 2 options. What are your? I know you're number 1.
My number 1 is Woody's Rodeo Roundup Barbecue, and it's not even particularly close. And part of that is because I don't like a lot of the meals at Hollywood Studios. I think like Sci-Fi and 50s Primetime they just don't really do it for me. The Hollywood Brown Derby Lounge is fine, but I'm not like, there's no dining there outside of Woody's that I get excited about. And in terms of character meals, like if your kids are into characters, I would definitely recommend Hollywood and Vine. If they're on the younger side, you can do the breakfast where you get the Disney Junior characters. If they're on the older side, maybe you do lunch or dinner with Minnie and friends. So I think that's a solid option. But like outside of that, like there's nothing that really excites me. And I've talked before on the show about how I'm more inclined to go somewhere else than I am to eat table service at Hollywood Studios. Like I would rather go to a different park or go to a different resort or whatever. But that said, like Woody's is solid, and there's a lot of like good options, but not anything that's like I really, really want to go there to eat from my perspective.
Yeah.
The quick service I think is solid also. Like there's a lot of like decent options. Docking Bay 7. The other one that really sticks out to me is ABC Commissary. What about you?
We like the Ronto wrap. It's just a grab and go. We like it at breakfast, especially probably more than dinner, with the egg and like the protein. It's like some sort of pork in there. We're not really big on quick service there. I mean, you got Woody's Lunchbox.
I can't believe I forgot to say Woody's Lunchbox.
I know.
Like the tachos are my favorite thing to eat at Hollywood Studios.
They are your favorite thing.
I just forgot.
I'm going to tell you, if you go to Backlot, the Wookiee cookie is a great snack. And my wife got so mad at me when we went in 18 and I ordered it. She's like, why? Or no, maybe it's 2021. I don't know. Why would you get this? And I gave her a piece and she's like, okay, I get it. I get why you got it. So that's probably, I mean, they have okay options. I'm not going to say anything's like the best. It goes back to, we'd probably leave and go over to Riviera and go eat at Bar Riva or go down to Primo Piatto.
Yes. Or like you hop over to Topolino's. Like I'm not leaving Hollywood Studios to go to Caribbean Beach to eat or anything like that. but I would love to go over to Epcot and like have dinner there and just kind of plan my day that way. Or you take a break in the early afternoon, eat dinner somewhere else, and come back for like some rides in Fantasmic at night. I think is always a solid option. So I think there's decent options at Hollywood Studios. It's just nothing that like I'm like, oh my gosh, if you go to Disney, you have to try this there or
Yeah,
anything like that. So
I agree.
that's my perspective on it. Question number 3: can you go to Walt Disney World without dining reservations? What's your thought here, man?
Man, one of our good friends and an avid listener never makes dining reservations. That's our boy Max. He
Yep.
literally
Shout out to Matt.
he never books dining reservations. He sat down. I forget what he texted me the one day. Oh, they went to House of Blues. He's like, oh, it's so good. I'm like, it's not even a top 20 restaurant in Disney, but he's like, I don't normally eat these. And but yes,
there's a couple spots that people go to at Disney that I'll still never understand. Rainforest Cafe, Planet Hollywood, T-Rex. Like I'm just like I don't know what to tell you at that point. But the short answer is absolutely you can go to Walt Disney World without dining reservations. And
yeah.
people do it all the time. I've done it. Chip's done it. Our friend Max, as we pointed out, has done it. You can, number one, you're going to be able to get dining reservations when you get there. There's going to be plenty of spots available. There's like things like Space 220 or some of the like smaller restaurants that are really, really high on people's priority list. A lot of those aren't going to be available, but you're going to be able to get some good solid options, especially if you don't have a party of like more than 4. If your party's like 4 or less, you're going to be solid. And like Chip, this is maybe I don't think this is a hot take, but Chip, I think like quick service is just so good at Disney.
It is. It's very, very good. And it's one of those things that it's hard to get tired of it. But kind of going back in that, like when you and I were down there in April, I turned down multiple different reservations of going to Art Smith's homecoming. And I ended up going and eating over at in England. I can't remember what it's called. I know it's right on the left. Rose and Crown. I ate at Rose and Crown and had my own fireworks feel.
Well, and that's the key too. Is like, what's your party size, right? If you've got 1, 2, 3, even 4, you're going to be able to get a lot of really good options. Yeah. If you got a family bigger than that, you're going to be up a creek a little bit. And I had that experience, right? I went with my family on our recent trip in September, and we went over to Disney Springs on a whim on our check-in day, and I was not expecting to go there, so I didn't have a dining reservation. And I also didn't think we'd stay that long because I thought we would go eat, back at the resort at the Riviera. And we decided we wanted to eat there. There was nothing. I mean, and but that's because we had 9 people. So we ended up eating at Paradiso 37, which was literally probably the worst meal I've ever had at Disney.
100%. You know, I've eaten there. And it was the worst we've ever had too. So yeah,
it was awful.
I'm going to go with
I don't know how that place stays in business.
I don't either. Cause we got a last minute reservation. That's why. I'll go hot take. The quick service at Disney Springs is actually really good.
It's the best at Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
Like Polite Pig is the best dining, at least quick service for sure. But I would put it up there it's at least in the top 5 of all dining at Disney.
Oh yeah. We ate at Cook's of Dublin the one day. The fish and chips there were phenomenal.
It's interesting. Yeah. One day we may have to rank all dining, quick service and table service. But anyway, the short answer, as we pointed out, is you can absolutely do Disney without dining reservations. Don't let the peer pressure, social media, YouTube videos, all that other stuff get into your head. If you're booking a trip, a lot of people book trips less than 60 days out. I had a family the other day that booked a trip 7 days out. They booked no dining. All they booked was multi-pass, and they just went for it. One of the busiest times of the year, right after Thanksgiving. And they had a great vacation. So you can absolutely do it. And I would encourage you to do so for sure. Number 4, there's the Polynesian Island Tower is about to open. It looks incredible from my perspective. And the question is the Polynesian overrated? And I think that this was partially due to our conversation with Nikki Marie on last week's episode where she raved about the Polynesian. And I want to hear what your thoughts are, Chip, before I jump in.
I say it's not not overrated. I don't think it's underrated either. I think it's about where it should be. And there's reasons why. And it's because the second floor of the main house where all the restaurants are is crazy after 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Every other time, like we've walked through the resort multiple times, it's quiet, it's beautiful, that's what makes it separates it. But if you're in the main building, oh, it's at night, it's rough. It makes
You,
me
you
not want to stay there.
you've just got like all the looky loos like me and Chip who are not staying there,
Yeah,
that are just coming through either for dining or for the fireworks or to get a Dole Whip or whatever the case may be, like just hanging out. And that's what people do at the Polynesian a lot. People don't go really to the Contemporary to just hang out. They don't really go to the Grand Floridian to just hang out, but they do go to the Polynesian to just hang out, or
yeah.
like to wait 3 hours for a bar to open at Trader Sam's. Like there's a lot going on there, and a lot of people that are not staying there walking around and hanging out, and it can make it really crowded. I do think that there's going to be a lot more exclusivity and quietness at the new Island Tower. So I think that that could solve that problem a little bit. But to me, it's not overrated at all. I think it's one of the best vacation experiences you can have at Walt Disney World. And partially that's due, I think, to the pricing. Like I've noticed that the pricing is not that far off in comparison to the Contemporary, the Grand Floridian, Beach Club. It's all in the same kind of tier. And then you go up one, and the Riviera for like non DVC folks is the most expensive. And so to me, it's like if you're gonna, if all things are equal and money's equal, I would rather stay at the Polynesian over every other deluxe resort not named the Riviera. I think I said that kind of quick
I
without
think
thinking about it. But
I think I
that's the
think you
case.
just announced where you and your family will be staying next time you guys go to Disney. I believe.
Well, the problem is like a lot of those rooms are only four people. So
Yeah.
like my family doesn't fit. That's the reason why
Yeah.
it doesn't work for us. The new Island Tower though is going to have some better options, so we'll see. And I think it's well priced. I think it's pretty much the same as staying in the old building for a lot of the rooms. So hopefully that helps answer your question, and I hope you stay at the Riviera or the Polynesian. I didn't write down who asked that question, but hope you enjoyed it. So the next question is, rank the moderate resorts at Walt Disney World for families with toddlers. And oh man, Chip, I think I don't know, man. I've really been digging into the pricing at Coronado Springs lately, and it's getting expensive. It's not a hidden gem anymore.
Yeah.
And I know Max is a huge fan of the Port Orleans resorts. So if you had to say, let's just give our top two. If you've got a family going to Walt Disney World that's interested in a moderate resort with toddlers, where would you recommend the top two choices?
Probably number one is going to be one of the Port Orleans resorts. I'm leaning more towards Riverside just because I think it's a little bit quieter. My second one is probably going to be the Caribbean Beach for the Skyliner. And it's not to say that, like Kelly and I have talked about going down in March and staying at a moderate. I don't know which one. We've talked about staying in the tower at Coronado, but when you're talking toddlers, I'm not thinking Coronado. That's probably the one I'm not thinking about. I'm thinking the other three.
I love Coronado, and normally Coronado would be the first one off my tongue. I think number one is going to be Caribbean Beach, assuming that the pricing is all
Yeah, say
together.
it's equal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like typically the way that you see it is the Port Orleans resorts are the cheapest. Coronado is a little bit more expensive, and then Caribbean Beach tends to be a little bit of a level above that. It's definitely the most expensive. And it's the most popular because you can get a lot more of those families of five into rooms versus the families of four. The other thing I like about Caribbean Beach in terms of you got the Skyliner, like Chip pointed out, but you've got better dining options close by.
yeah,
I don't like the dining. I like Sebastian's Bistro doesn't do it for me. There's no dining at Caribbean Beach that gets me excited, but you're a walk away from the Riviera where I love the dining.
oh yeah. And
So
you're a Skyliner away from the boardwalk.
right. And so I think that there's just way better options close by. That said, I still think that Coronado would be my number two, and it's for the dining reason. I think that the dining at Coronado is significantly better than both Port Orleans resorts, and the transportation is the same. So if for some reason I was going to be spending a lot of time at Disney Springs, which I don't think you're going to be doing with toddlers, then maybe I would consider like Port Orleans so that you'd have closer access to those spots. But I still think it'd be Caribbean Beach number one and Coronado number two for me. And the pools, I think are all great at all those
Yeah,
resorts.
yeah.
So
Mine didn't come down to pools or anything. Mine was more. I think there's just more room to run around in Port Orleans Riverside, but it's all one of those. I don't think you go wrong with any of them.
I agree. Like I will tell you, when you talk about a room to run around, like they've got that full convention center there at Coronado, and like we used to let our kids run there after breakfast all the time. Like they would literally just
Nice.
sprint the hallways of that huge convention center. So there's a lot, and they've got the big loop around the lake and the nice pool and all that fun stuff. So I don't think you can really go wrong. But like the Port Orleans resorts, like they're just okay to me. I've stayed at Riverside, I've stayed at French Quarter, and I don't think that I would ever be itching to go back there for me personally. But that's just my own opinion. So moving on, is character dining, and this one's going to be a short answer because I think you and I are on the same page with this. Is character dining worth it at Walt Disney World if you just have a group of adults?
I don't think so.
Either.
I mean, there's just better restaurants you can go, and I mean, normally the food isn't as great at those type of restaurants. Now, there's some that are, but more or less, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Unless there's like a specific character that you really want to meet that you can't otherwise. Like the one that sticks out to me is you always get a lot of adults at Storybook Dining at Artist Point at Marathon Weekend because all the runners that did the Dopey Challenge want to get their picture taken with Dopey, and you can't do that anywhere else. So like that I think is a consideration. So if you take a look at some of the dining and you're like, I really want to meet that character, and you can't otherwise in your trip do that. A great example of that also is 1900 Park Fair. Like if you want to meet Aladdin or Mirabelle and you can't finagle that into your Magic Kingdom day, or you don't want to risk like Aladdin not being out or whatever, I think that that's a great option. The same goes for like if you've got, well, I guess you wouldn't have Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique with just adults, but if for some reason you wanted to meet Cinderella and you don't want to pay for Cinderella's Royal Table or wait at Princess Fairy Tale Hall, 1900 Park Fair makes sense. But
Yeah,
otherwise, I don't know. I'm not messing with it. The food at 1900 Park Fair, I think you could argue, is good enough on its own.
it was really good. And then Artist Point, also the food is pretty good there.
Yeah.
That's another thing I've heard.
There's
So
no there's nothing else that sticks out. Like I'm not going to Chef Mickey's with a group of adults.
the only other
Unless
one
you
I would
want
say,
this.
Tusker House might be the only other one that has really good food, but I would just go over to Boma.
Yeah, if you're headed that way, well, the transportation can be a pain, but I would agree with that 100%. The next question is, what are the disadvantages to staying off site at Walt Disney World? And Chip, I've had this come up a lot lately, and people are learning this one the hard way. So I've got some real strong opinions on this. But when you've stayed off site, what do you think are
Yeah.
some of the disadvantages?
Number one is your Uber bill at the end of your trip is higher, or your rental car. Now, some people rent a car or drive, whatever. Also, there's
Parking.
just parking. Like as much as I love Disney, parking at the TCC is awful. I hate it. It's the world's largest parking lot. For those that don't know, the second world's largest parking lot is Epcot, or third, I think. But it's just one of those, parking is miserable. I'd rather just get off a bus and continue walking. And I mean, there's some other advantages, like you get in early at all the parks.
The number one disadvantage to staying off site
Oh, I know what it is now. Yeah.
is that you can't book multi-pass at 7 days out. And the reality is we've learned now that we've been through a busy period here, Thanksgiving, we know multi-pass is going to sell out. And so if you're staying off site, you can only book it 3 days before your first park day, like based on your date-based tickets. So you're going to be booking multi-pass 4 days after everybody else. And you're going to be booking it along with anybody that has an annual pass, like locals, all that kind of stuff. And the rides that are going to be available are crap. So like if you want the opportunity to ride Slinky Dog Dash with multi-pass, you need to stay on site. Like that's just the reality. And so when you look at all the different ways, like let's say you're staying off site and you're saving, let's say it's $50 a night, or even upwards. Let's say you're saving $100 a night. I think that's with how low the value resorts are priced. I think that's unlikely. But let's say you want to stay at a nicer Marriott and don't want to stay at a deluxe resort, so you're saving like $100 a night. You're immediately losing that value in parking costs, the Uber or your transportation, whatever that is, the amount of time that it's going to take to deal with all those things. But then most importantly, in multi-pass or premier pass or whatever, like those costs are going to add up.
And
Just the
listen,
reality.
and somebody that stays off site, like we're talking about maybe going down this summer and staying off site and not going to the parks
Yeah,
because we know.
that's a different, that to me, that's a completely different scenario, right?
But that's the whole reason why we would stay off site. Like we've done it where we stayed off site and gone to the parks and we don't like it.
Yeah.
We stay off site to enjoy the pool and all that, and then go on property.
I've had multiple people email me lately saying that they're staying at an Airbnb over the Christmas break and they don't want to book a Disney World package. They just want tickets. And I'm like, that's fine. Like you can do it that way, but you're gonna have a rough time. And from my perspective, and I know there's a lot of people that are going to disagree with that, but if you want to wait in the lines, then fine, stay off site. But like there's no way to me that it would be worth missing multiple bookings. Like you're not going to have a great experience. I've said it before on the show. I said it last week. I think if you're going to Disney, I think you're in for a rough experience.
And that's going to go to the next question: is can you go to Walt Disney World without multi-pass? And I would say there's a way to do it, but your expectations can't be of we're going to do the A-list attractions because that's not realistic.
If you like waiting in lines, by all means, do it without multipass. Like it's a time value of money equation, and a lot of people like don't think about that. Multipass is $30 a day. If you save 1 hour, that's $30 an hour. Like it's worth it 10 times over, in my opinion, and it's part of the reason why I think it's going to end up being a lot more expensive. They're going to raise the price, and they frankly they should. So the reality is that you can go to Walt Disney World without multipass, depending on the time of year you're going, right? If you're not going at a busy time of year, or if you're going with just adults and you don't mind waiting in lines, or if you don't want to ride like a lot of the most popular attractions, you'll be fine without it. But I think for the majority of people, you're going to have a bad experience. And I had this, Chip, I want to bring this up real quick. You and I are the same where like we go to Thanksgiving or we go to Christmas meals and we see all these people we haven't seen in a long time. And naturally people ask us about Disney or we talk about Disney because it's what we do and we love to talk about it, right? We can't shut our mouths about Disney. That's the reality. My wife, like she starts to hear, is he talking about Disney? And she walks away. Okay. But I had somebody tell me like that he went to Walt Disney World like a year or two ago and he just had like the worst experience ever. And I really think, and he said he hates Disney and he wants to take his kids. He wants me to help. And he's got this like really bad outlook on it. I genuinely believe there's nobody that hates Disney World. There's people that had a really, really bad experience and it just clouds their view of it. And this is an example. Like you talk about going in August without multi-pass with 3 kids, you are going to have a bad time. Like, I'm sorry, you are.
I had, and it goes with like, you also got to understand, I had a friend who went at Christmas after COVID in 2020 and he like, they didn't wait in line for anything, but he's like, it's not Cedar Point. And I was like, did you expect thrill rides? Cause it's got about 3 or 4. It doesn't have every thrill ride. I was like, you literally rode everything I told you to ride and you're mad.
You just like, you can't come back and complain about crowds and lines and heat if you book a vacation at a popular time of year in the middle of the summer and you don't pay the money to be able to avoid those things. Yeah. That's the way I look at it. And there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna like hate on this and say like, we go with multi-pass all the time. We have a great time. Like, that's fine. You're like a unicorn to me. Like I do it too. It's occasionally it's possible. And I have a great time, but I'm also immune to bad experiences at Disney. Like there's not like it would take a lot for me to have a bad vacation at Walt Disney World. And the same for Chip. But I think that like, man, if you've already got that outlook, you just need to have better planning, make sure you're budgeting appropriately for the right things. And instead of, buying the extra, I don't know, buying 3 or 4 of the spring rolls, you need to put it towards multi-pass.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people that I could go to Walt Disney World without multi-pass to Epcot, to Animal Kingdom, and have a great day.
We did that. We did it with Chris, right? Like, didn't we walk? I mean, we walked around. We rode Figment. We rode Soarin'. Anything that had a low weight. But then again, like that's what we're talking about here is where you're hitting that either at a low point in time. You got lucky with low weights. like there's a number of different factors that can chime in, like where, yeah, like maybe you rope drop and you get lucky and you avoid all these crowds and you're doing all this like hyper specific planning. But like most people, that's not what they're experiencing. They're getting to the park at like 9:30 and they're arriving without multipass, and the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train line is an hour and a half. That's what most people experience.
And
So that
it's
I
yeah, you're right. You got to have a travel agent when it comes to this. Like you guys are free. Like people don't understand. They're not paying for you. You don't
right.
get paid by them. You get paid by Disney. And I'm a very advocate. Like I always talk to you about questions that I get asked because I don't always know the answers. Yeah, you can go to Disney World without multipass, but your expectations can't be that you're going to do every single ride.
Yeah,
And,
no doubt.
at the end of the
And,
day,
that's going to wrap it for this week. And as Chip pointed out, I am a travel agent with the Magic for Less Travel. It is completely free to you. It's free to get a quote, free to chat about Disney. If you need a quote for your next Walt Disney World or Universal or Disney Cruise Line or Royal Caribbean, any of those fun things, reach out to me. Links are going to be in the show notes. We would love to help you plan a great vacation for you and your family. And really, thanks to everybody for listening. Like Chip and I saw our Spotify Wrapped for the podcast this week, and it was like mind blowing. People listening from 15 different countries and like almost 1,000% growth year over year. Thank you so much. If you could like, rate, and review the podcast, we'd appreciate it. But again, thank you just for listening. Feel free, if you have listener questions, submit those via email, and we'll try and make sure they get answered on the next episode. And we'll see you in the parks.
we'll see when we see you.